Is November 2nd, 2016. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Germana.
Here?
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell is absent. Mr. Greenspan. Here. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. There is a quorum.
Okay. Any public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
Okay, we have the minutes from the October 19th meeting. If they're in order, can we, second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Okay, 196.
Resolution number 2016-0196, authorizing a revenue-generating agreement with Corporate Wings Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $1 million for lease of hangar space located at the Cuyahoga County Airport for the period 9/1/2016 through 8/31/2026.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. John Myers from Department of Public Works. How are you?
Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while.
I'm too blessed.
So,
We would like to.
Oh, very good. Just to give you a brief overview, this is a hangar at the Cuyahoga County Airport, which was built originally by Diamond Shamrock Corporation several decades ago. We had a ground lease, and as part of that ground lease, at the end of this 40-year term, the hangar now reverts to county ownership. So we have continued our relationship that we had with Corporate Wings Cleveland, which is part of One Sky, which is a major corporation out there, One Sky Directional Capital, which has a $29 million payroll out at the county airport. This was determined a couple years ago. We had an outside consultant evaluate our holdings at the airport and evaluate the determination to what fair market values were out there. And we based a negotiated lease upon those numbers. So it will amount to approximately a minimum of $73,000 per year for this hangar. That will be revenue generating for the county. And it is a 10-year term with 2 5-year renewals presented to that company.
do you know how much they were paying before?
Yes, so it's currently a fairly substantial increase. They've been paying for years approximately 19, or they will now be paying $19,000 for the ground lease. This is a 48% increase that we negotiated. The actual hangar lease is actually 100% increase because previously they had control, they owned the hangar and now reverted to us. So now this is a 100% increase, obviously from zero. We went from a minimum fuel flow, which is one of our revenue generating paths at the airport, that we had a 12.5% increase for a minimum of $18,000 per year that they must pay regardless of whether they use any fuel or not. And the per gallon rate that was part of this increased 43% from 7 cents per gallon to 10 cents per gallon. In addition, previously there were no escalators in the lease, and so we negotiated a minimum of 2.5% increase per year or CPI, whichever is greater.
Okay, great. Let the record reflect that Councilwoman Simon's in attendance. I guess my last question is, it's a September 1. This is November. Where has it been?
Well, it took a while to negotiate all these terms to satisfactory completion, I'm sorry to say. So this and our own processes have resulted in this date, but they're continuing to pay their rent as such. So it's a revenue generating that's still coming into the county. So
will this go back, will their rent go back to September 1st if we pass this?
yes.
Okay. Councilwoman, this is your district. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm aware of the transaction with Corporate Wings. Have been a great partner at the airport for a long time.
Okay, any other questions, Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. What other obligations do we have regarding this facility? We now own it, so is
Yes.
this, what do we have?
So we have zero obligations. Have complete responsibility from top to bottom for all maintenance, operations, investment, any building system that goes down there, fully responsible for maintaining.
So it's a triple net lease?
Yes.
Okay.
And in addition to that, they also have an obligation over the first 10-year term to invest over $200,000 above that into enhancing the facility for future use.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Myers, a couple years ago, we got numerous letters from people about the Flying J Club and use of hangar space and stuff like that. And my question is whether this has any connection with that.
No, Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Miller. This is a hangar which has been currently underused by the current occupants that we're continuing this relationship with, so it doesn't impact the T&G Flight Club. As far as it doesn't add or subtract from our relationship with them. We're continuing to work with T&G to facilitate their business. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, obviously, we probably want to move this along since it goes
Yes.
back to September 1.
We appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
So I'll move for a second reading suspension to the full council. It's been seconded. Any final questions? Okay, so we're all ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
196 goes to full council for second reading suspension. 197.
Resolution number 2016-0197, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1500375 with Turner Ozanne Joint Venture for Design Builder Services for the Huntington Park Garage Rehabilitation Project for the period 12/7/2015 through 12/2/2016.
Good morning, Mr. Dever. You want to introduce your,
Great, yes. Good morning, members of council. Michael Dever with Department of Public Works. With me also is a new employee with the county. His name is Matt Reimer. Matt comes from the U.S. Coast Guard, or retired from the U.S. Coast Guard. He's in charge of now our facilities functions in the county here. So anything related to any of the county facilities, be it the Justice Center, the Juvenile Justice Center, the Huntington Park Garage, which we're going to talk about here, the building trades, that's Matt's functions, and I just wanted to make sure I pointed out that Matt's here, and if any of you have any other further questions or are looking for anything in particular in regards to the facilities, Matt's down in Public Works. Okay. So at the same time, we're here to talk about the Huntington Park Garage project. This is the third amendment to that contract that we're bringing forward. The goals of this presentation, and I have it before us here. I don't know if it's popped up there. You should have a copy in front of you, I believe. Okay. Facilitate county council approval on amendment number 3. Provide background project status, needs to achieve project objectives, and then provide an understanding of the new scope requirements considered for Amendment 3 and their contribution to the county project. As you know, this project was for repair and enhancements to the Huntington Park Garage. Some of those items included structural systems, waterproofing, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, fire suppression, and MISC architectural services. Other things that have been added to the project is an elevator, which we're going to talk about in regards to the old courthouse. So base design, the building contract and amendments to award the construction. The last was approved by this council back on April 12th of 16 for a total of guaranteed maximum price of $17,500,000. Phase 1 of the project, which has been ongoing, included the top level, which is level 1, was work that we did, waterproofing and structural, to complete all of that work before the RNC. We're happy to say we did have that completed approximately 4 weeks before the RNC, and it was open. At the same time, it was to coincide with the opening of the hotel for them to have, to be able to utilize parking. They've been utilizing the top deck at this time while we continue to work on the lower levels. Phase 2 is level 2 through 4 restoration. And then also we're capping the elevator banks and a few other things on the top level.
What does that mean, capping?
The elevator banks, basically roofs, we're putting on top of the elevator banks. And then around the perimeter, there was a planters and that were causing water infiltration also. We're putting caps on those also. 60% of the current contract work is completed and invoiced to date. There's just a quick overview of the location. Level 1 work to date. Level 1 demolition. As we talked about before, we stripped off everything, the top deck, and put a new surface on there and coatings. West 3rd entrance utility work. We had a new water line going into the facility from West 3rd Street. That work has been completed. Level 1 structure caps and deck coning. As you can see there, those are the elevator and stair caps, or the stairways. Typical concrete restoration as they go through the project. There's areas that concrete has to be restored. So you can see that's an example of some of the areas where you first concrete or you chip off the old concrete, and then you put, if the rebar or steel is in poor condition, that has to be replaced. Amendment 3, the components of it are additional quantities for structural concrete restoration. As we've been going through this project and as they chip away concrete, they've identified additional repairs, and that's one of those items that we're bringing forward also. Accessibility improvements to the garage and the connecting elevator entrance systems to the adjacent courthouse. So I go back to this photo here, the connection to the old courthouse, as I hope many of you know, is right in the middle there. Hopefully you can see my arrow there, but that's the area where the elevator connects into the old courthouse. Scope of work components driven by the hotel requirements, certain finishes, utility connection, parking equipment, and signage to the hotel. In regards to the accessibility improvements to the old courthouse, the elevator is going to be replaced by an ADA and gurney. I'm not sure if you've utilized that elevator before, but it's very narrow. It's roughly a 5x5 in dimensions, so there's not much space in there. That's also a photo of the back end of the elevator, which is going to have a receiving vestibule and an enclosure. The total value of the amendment is $5,209,082. So $841,000 of it and $555 is funded through the HPG restoration funded project, which was in the project. The $1.7 million for the ADA improvements to the elevator. The ADA improvements were driven by a settlement agreement in regards to ADA improvements at the old courthouse. We settled with the law department had settled. We decided to move forward with those projects. Those items.
Who was suing on that? What was that about?
There was a suit brought forward about various improvements or various ADA accessibility issues in the old courthouse. The name of the respective who had brought suit against us, I'm not sure who that is. Okay. No.
Okay.
But I'm sure we can get that information for you. But it was back in the spring that we decided, rather than move forward with that litigation is to go forward with the improvements in the old courthouse. And much of that we have been doing in the old courthouse. There's bathroom improvements, a contract that was approved by this council, I believe over 18 months ago, of washroom improvements, and we're just about finished with those now. There's a few other miscellaneous items within the old courthouse that we're doing with in-house trades, but that's moving forward. And so this elevator was a piece of that we needed to move forward with, and it made sense to incorporate it with the HPG renovations.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Miller?
Where does the 1.750 million for the elevator project funding and the 400,000 for the 2017 ADA Phase 2 capital project, where does the money from that actually come from?
That was in our capital plan. The 1.75 was in our 2016 capital plan, and it was general fund dollars that are going to be utilized for that. And then in 2017, we do have budgeted that 400,000 within our capital plan for those improvements.
And what about the 800,000? Where does that come from?
That's part of the HBG capital that will be paid for out of the revenue from the garage itself. So those are the other items there. The 1.4 million will be funded by the hotel project funding, or the sales tax portion of the hotel project. Those are, once again, the enhancements to the garage.
And Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Miller?
Director, why were these things not anticipated and included in the original project? I mean, as far as the additional quantities that you found as you were going along, I understand about that, but it seems like the rest of it could have been anticipated.
Well, anticipated in regards to the hotel items, they were above and beyond for the structural integrity of the garage itself. So those items are squarely part of the hotel experience, and that's why we're obviously utilizing those dollars. As you made reference, the quantities, we did put a best guess to how much concrete restoration, but once again, it was unforeseen conditions. When we did the initial analysis of the facility, we thought those restoration or those quantities for concrete restoration we thought were adequate. But as you start popping concrete and expose that steel, and if we don't answer it now, that shortens the lifespan of the garage, which we are shooting for that 20-year lifespan.
Mr. Greenspan?
So back onto this, the previous slide, slide 10. The 841 is funding from the restoration project. Was that money already included in the 17 million previously referenced?
Nicole English is with us also. Okay. Nicole.
So that money wasn't in the Turner contract, but it was in the project budget. So we had a project budget that exceeded the Turner contract, which included our own labor, some contingency money, permits, insurance, those things. So that was excess money we were able to pull out of other sources to use now for this amendment.
So the GMP did not include
No.
this, but because the GMP was specifically related to the Turner contract.
It's only the Turner agreement.
The 800,000 on the HPG capital project, and the response to the question about where that funding was coming from revenue of the parking fees itself. Where is the initial money coming to fund the activity to be reimbursed or paid back through fees?
That's to talk about the bond deal. Right now it's general fund, right?
Right now it is general fund, but we're supposedly going to be selling bonds shortly.
Okay.
In regards to this.
Okay, so it'll be temporary use of reserves.
That's right.
With the expectation, okay. The legislation that's before us.
Right.
So the $1,401,17 funded from the hotel project fund. And I'm trying to recall exactly how that fund is managed through the Convention Center Authority, do we have to go through them?
No, because this is still hotel dollars,
Okay.
because we haven't closed out the hotel project.
Okay.
So this will come right from the monies that we have set aside in the hotel
The
fund.
30 million roughly
Correct.
that's sitting there in excess.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And a question back, Ms. Simon may fall out of her chair when I ask this question. So the first, on level one of the garage, were there tree canopy requirements as it related to the redesign of those flower beds? It didn't look like there was any greenery on the level one. Has that been removed?
Yes, actually it has, and some of it is on the periphery and it wasn't adding value to the project. The key goal of the project was to maximize parking. Obviously, we've had some issues with parking, so we were able to add an additional, I believe it's 80 spots.
By removing some of the
That's
tree
correct.
canopy?
And restriping it and reconfiguring the garage layout.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. So with the restoration, the amendment number 3, concrete restoration, this is the schedule that we have before us. In June of 17, we'll have all of the concrete restoration. The new fire sprinkler system will be in place by September of 17. And then new accessibility and all of those improvements also in October, and the overall completion is scheduled now for October of 17.
So, we have a substitute. So I think this might be the appropriate time to move the substitute. So I'll move that we accept the substitute
Is that wrong?
2016-197. Is there a second? For substitute?
I'll second.
Okay. So
But
it's
I would
been.
like to know
I
how the
understand.
substitute-
It's been moved and seconded, so what's the difference on the substitute? Okay, so it's
The dates were incorrect.
strictly the dates.
Those were the original dates, and so now we're amending to lengthen the contract period to the end of next year.
Okay. So if it's just the dates, any questions on the dates, changing the dates? All those in favor of the substitute, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay, we've got the substitute.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, so, go ahead.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Simon.
So completion date is estimated for next year, 12 months. Is the garage going to be full like it is every single day at 8:30 a.m. until next year? People can't get in. It's totally full every day.
Right, well, there's a good portion, obviously, there's a good, the eastern portion of the garage, the lower levels are currently under construction
Right.
right now. So we have a significant number of spots offline.
Right.
As for the fire sprinkler work, that's
Now, when
more-
is the garage going to open back up to the public, basically? That eastern end has eaten up most of the spots for the customers of the court.
Yeah.
The sprinkler isn't going to, do anything to provide access to the public. When is that going to open up?
Yeah, so primarily in the spring and June of 17 is when all concrete restoration is done. Then we should have availability of a substantial portion of the garage.
Hopefully by June.
Yes.
Hopefully by June. Yeah, because customers of the court have nowhere to go. I understand. This hotel requirements, when you say requirement, is this just their request of things they want, or do we have a contract with them insisting that we do what they want, or what's going on with that?
It's a combination of both. Some of it was spelled out in the quality management agreement where we would give them safe parking and lit parking and signage to the hotel. And then others were items that they thought were, would enhance the experience and then would help their bottom line as far as customer reviews and ratings. And so that's why it's coming out of their budget, that it was items we worked on with Hilton and our owner's rep to agree on, and that it would be able to come out of the hotel budget. So we felt confident that it was worthy of getting done, but again, with their dollars.
What happens if we don't use all of the hotel money that we have set aside for the hotel? Part of that 30 mil.
What happens with the remaining
Yeah,
hotel dollars?
the contingency money that's left
They go
over.
back into that sales tax fund or the hotel fund, convention center fund, and I think that's yet to be determined.
I'd like a list of what they want. I mean, a lot of it extra just might be beautification, aesthetics.
We can get you a
Right.
listing of what's included in that 1.4.
I mean, are we doing everything they want, or is
No.
there some pushback if they want, you know?
There was
I hope
definite
there's, because this is money
pushback.
that we're gonna need down the road. I mean, this
Right.
isn't an endless, you
No,
know,
it
pot of
wasn't,
money.
They definitely came to us with more things that they wanted, and we have toned it down. You know, they really want the guests to be safe, so lighting the ceilings more. If you've been in that garage, you know, at
in there.
night, it's pretty dim.
Yeah.
And so we're painting
Okay.
the ceilings, that's
Okay.
related to them with a reflective painting. The elevator, they agreed that the one elevator bank, if we would redo the whole thing, that would be on them as far as finishes, so that it is a cleaner, that's where their guests are gonna use, the east end and, elevator bank. I'm trying to think of some other items that. Those are the major. That's the big cost driver, related to their, the painting itself is a decent amount. So we can get you the list with the
What's
amounts.
being painted, the ceiling?
The ceiling itself.
To the,
with
of the whole garage, or just their
Not-
eastern end? Or the
the second and third floors, because that's where their guests would be parking.
downstairs?
Not the
Okay.
fourth, which we're putting valets, so we did not lighten that up, assuming that there aren't
Okay.
customers down there.
Okay.
So we have limited some of the items they had asked, you know, they would have preferred it all to be lit, but we said, let's be realistic, and the valets don't need that extra expense.
Exactly.
There is some valet accommodations on that fourth floor, you know, a room for the valet so that they can be stationed there more efficient. That was another cost that we added for them. But we could get you the full list and with the cost.
And this valet is just the hotel valet, that's not, we're still gonna have our own people there?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, it's just their runners,
Correct.
you know, back and forth.
thanks.
How's the tunnel? Is that, that goes underneath Lakeside, is that completed?
No, it isn't. They've completed the portions on outside of the roadway, and we received approval from the city of Cleveland. Actually, we've already set up the maintenance of traffic plan. We're going to be doing half of the road at a time, per the request from the city of Cleveland. They'd like to keep access on that road open. So it'll be doing half width at a time. So they're working on the northern end as we speak now, and they've just cut the road open and they're excavating and putting sheeting and piling in. There is substantial utility work from Cleveland Thermal, Cleveland Water, CPP, and one other utility that is involved there. So there's a lot of coordination in a very tight spot. So we're working through that as we speak.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Miller?
Follow up on that, what's the expected completion date on the tunnel?
The tunnel right now is expected to be completed in approximately the same time frame as this project, probably a little bit later in towards the end of 17. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe that the tunnel will be able to open a little bit before that, but as far as final completion, you know, they'll have to finish inside of it, and they have the lighting that goes in is closer to this end date too.
And what's the total capacity of the Huntington Park garage going to be with the new configuration that you've developed, and how does that compare with what we had prior to construction?
Yeah, actually, Matt's.
Councilman, the original capacity was 1,100 parking spaces. With that restriping and the realignment of the top level, it's going to be approximately 1,177 in the final state.
Okay, thank you.
So there was, I know we had discussion about future building underneath the park. Where does that planning stand?
We've looked at multiple options now. One option was to put another level on top of the garage. Another option that we looked at was to go under Fort Huntington Park, where the police memorial is, to just kind of give a sense of where that location is. The cost for that was prohibitive. We also looked at a parking plan over at Courthouse Square to build a deck over there. We have estimates, preliminary estimates on that. we're still in discussion of looking at various options. So,
Courthouse Square is what exactly?
yeah, that's on the northwest corner of West Third and Lakeside. It's Courthouse Square. Primarily, the public defender's office is in there, and also the prosecutor office is in there. So, right next to that building, just west of that building, we have a large lot that houses 105 vehicles, surface lot. And so we were able to configure a deck to build in that location, about 5 stories, 6 stories high. So we're still working through those numbers. So I anticipate that we're going to be coming before you in the near future with some thoughts about possibly parking expansion.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Miller?
On that point, if you did the parking deck at Courthouse Square, how many parking spaces would that create?
That would create an additional, with the 100, because it would create an additional net gain of 400 spots.
So you'd go from 100 plus to a little over 500.
In total, because I'm taking out a good portion of the 105, that not all of them, so I'm incorporating them in it. So the net gain is really about 300.
300, okay.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I'm satisfied with the progress of the discussions on the garage. That there's a couple other, we're looking at these options in the west Courthouse Square parking lot's a really good option if we have to do it. But there's some shifting going on with obviously the Justice Center, so we're just seeing how that settles out before committing to the additional spots. But we need them, there's no doubt. We're down to the public about 300 to 400 spots, and we need to make it up someplace.
Okay, any other questions? So we need to move this forward.
Yes, please, if you could, Mr. Chairman, if we could respectfully ask for a second reading suspension on this item.
Okay, is there any objection to that? Okay, so I'll make a motion that we refer this to full council under second reading suspension. Is there a second?
Second, as substituted.
That's what we're on the substitute. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, and I do understand that we have someone in the audience that's wearing campaign. I just want to remind everyone that the rules is that there won't be campaign material. The rules are that we do not have campaign wear in the council chambers. So I'm just advising you that, so that everybody knows that in the future. We're done. We're through. I just wanted, for the record, because it was brought up, so everybody understands. Okay, anything further before this meeting? Okay, well, that concludes our agenda. Is there any public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed
Okay,
in.
this meeting's adjourned.